What if I told you that I rehearsed this script about 12 times? Because it's true, just because I stutter.
What you'll do?
Teehee. Is Nathan Fielder practicing unethical, abusive, and manipulative methods in the new HBO show, The Rehearsal? Why did HBO give him this much money? Was this all a plan by Nathan Fielder to use all of HBO's money to take down HBO? In all seriousness, Nathan Fielder is the hilarious comedian that has been behind Nathan For You and Nathan By Your Side. He has also produced a few shows since the last time we have seen him in front of a camera. But The Rehearsal is his glorious return to the TV format.
Sometimes you don't want to say anything, but you do want people to know you exist.
Well, how do I explain this show? I've tried to explain this show to friends and I just completely stumble and end up explaining entire episodes. So let's try this again. The Rehearsal is a show where the main concept is, what if hard decisions in life could be rehearsed first to optimize results, all with real people? Taking that concept, Nathan Fielder has been given a lot of money by HBO to create sets, hire actors, and control the weather in order to test out his theory.
But it turns out winter is very expensive to maintain.
The first episode is showing you what Nathan Fielder can do in the world that he has created for this show. Then the rest of the season is where he, quote, helps this woman in determining if she wants a child by orchestrating a new home to live in and a system where every week a child actor ages 3 years. Before I tell you how much I love this show, I want to lightly graze over the moral discourse surrounding this show. Is this show moral? Is this show ethical? Well, simply put, it's legal. There's an incident later in the show where a kid becomes way too attached to Nathan as a fake father, and Nathan is honestly battling with what he's done.
You don't have to call me Daddy, you can call me Nathan, okay?
No, Daddy was silly.
No, because we were just playing Daddy, remember? We were just pretending.
But I'll tell you about that later in this review. To me, the best way to tackle this review would be to go over episode by episode and highlight as we go. Fully recommend watching the show before finishing this video, and this is your warning. When I was initially watching this show, week by week, I assumed the structure of the show was a new rehearsal every week with no new scenarios being extended for longer than a single episode. This is the longest episode of the series, but it also elaborates on Fielder's method the most. You are also able to see how far Nathan is willing to go to test his hypothesis. Thanks, HBO. We also meet the best subject of the series, Core Skeet.
I decided to let them think I had a master's degree when I was just getting my bachelor's.
We meet plenty of characters in this show, but Core has maybe the most simple white lie and doesn't give us many red flags as some of the other people in the show do. The first 6 minutes of this episode is just brilliance. The reveal that he has been practicing for such a tiny conversation in a private model of Core's house that he figured out the blueprints to by sending in a fake gas company to take dimensions of his house.
Wow.
It's Synecdoche, New York with a comedic twist that still retains some of the dramatic elements. The episode is absolutely hilarious, but there are a couple points I'd like to showcase first. The use of actors in the show coupled with the editing is brilliant. After the rehearsal is a success for Core, Nathan implements his own rehearsal for telling Core that his way of feeding him trivia answers was unethical. At the end of the episode, he gives a big monologue about how he's sorry, and it's revealed he was telling it to the actor the whole time.
It's a huge mistake. You fucked this all up.
The rehearsal worked for Core, but Nathan wasn't able to rehearse his way out of this nasty conversation in a calm and non-confrontational way. So he just doesn't have the conversation, showing you the two sides of the coin to the rehearsal method. Another key point I wanted to highlight in this episode would be the editing. We know we are working with real people and there are real consequences to these characters for following Fielder's direction. Core has been rehearsing for a while, and when the big night comes up, he's very human. He's following most of the direction, but he has a few awkward moments here and there that are still very natural. Talking at the same time as the person you're talking to, overlapping dialogue, and awkward silences are all normal to the human experience. And the editing decisions during these moments give us the most raw feeling imaginable, especially during this long silence where he is supposed to tell her about the lie. He has a gap. There is a 2-minute silence, and there are zooms, cuts, but all you need to hear is the background noise of the bar. Absolutely haunting stuff. The entire time I'm just screaming in my head and cringing to my core. See what I did there? And when Core starts his confession 2 minutes later, you smile a little bit. Great first episode.
So it's days like these that I curse the Chinese for inventing gunpowder.
This is the start of the ambitious mission by Nathan Fielder. Nathan finds a woman named Angela to help simulate 18 years of childcare by renting a house in Oregon, trying to help find a suitable partner, and to show if she wants this simulated stage of life to happen in her real life. In order to achieve this, Nathan hires child actors who can only work 3 hours due to labor laws, and will also age 3 years every week. This is also one of my favorite episodes because they find the most toxic dude ever to match with the spiritual Angela. Before Before I just crap on this guy, I want to make sure everyone knows that Nathan Fielder does not aim to make people look bad. He doesn't lead them down any hole. The people dig their own graves.
What are you stepping to, bruh?
Wash?
What are you stepping to?
What the fuck does that mean?
What's up?
Enter Robin, a spiritual guy as well. I never really believe Angela is that hurtful of a person when she justifies things with her religion, but Robin, on the other hand, explains everything through coincidence and religion. I don't think Angela is necessarily a bad person. I do think what we have seen from Robin shows he's a pretty bad dude. When someone takes advantage of someone else being spiritual by mentioning how some weird coincidence led them to meeting.
33 miles, still empty. Jesus Christ was crucified at 33. 55 on the mileage.
Oh, okay.
Big change, transformation, and grace. 22, turning all dreams and desires into reality.
Bro, it's a clock. It's gonna hit this number once every day. It is not special. He also states he can't live with someone who doesn't believe in Jesus.
You sussy bata.
I don't want to clown on him too much for not wanting to participate in this weird scenario where he has to be a co-parent with some chick he just met. To me, it's so clear this dude just wants some pussy.
What are your convictions about purity, like in dating?
As far as like sexual, I definitely do have sexual relations.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I'm not giving this for nobody except my husband. There's like a temptation issue.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
He even tells Nathan that he thinks that he will be able to change her mind.
That might change.
You think you're gonna have sex with her
Who
tonight?
knows? The door's open, I guess. I don't know.
Dude leaves after one night with a screaming baby. Side note, the dude that takes the night owl job is absolutely hilarious. He falls asleep within 15 minutes of the job after claiming he's a night owl. I don't know where he finds these people. This is the episode where we get a sneak peek at Angela being kind of a menace, not letting her kid participate in Halloween because it's satanic. She also believes Google is owned by the devil. This is the first episode where we get a secondary rehearsal with this new guy. He starts out with the most telling statement there is.
It's a Punisher emblem.
What's that about?
I like the Punisher just because he's he takes his the law into his own hands to punish the people that wronged him.
I don't want to get super into this, but Punisher should not be viewed as a symbol of law and order, but somehow it's been hijacked by a certain archetype of men. Patrick's rehearsal is about having a confrontation with his brother saying his girlfriend is not a gold digger in order to get money from his grandfather's will. The will says he cannot be dating a gold digger to get the money. Let's just say this guy isn't that lovable.
She's a Jew about it, pretty much. If and you know how the Jews are, kind of thing. She's just paying pinches.
I actually like how Nathan Fielder handles this because he doesn't just say, you can't say that. He understands this has to be authentic and how Patrick would personally handle this conversation. I love how in this episode, Nathan really challenges himself to how authentic all of this is. Spending all this money on HBO and getting these scenarios could be enough for a lot of artists, but he really is challenging himself to make this follow his initial game plan. The side plot of the actor having a fake acting family achieves this point so well and maybe gives me one of the biggest laughs in the entire show. They strike up a bond and the fake granddad wants to give him the gold in the plot set up by Nathan, later killing him off so we can have a conversation with the original actor that will mirror his feelings towards the actor's fake granddad. We really do get this authentic conversation between the actors, but we get a first of the show. Patrick flakes, absolutely ghosting Nathan. This was inevitable to happen in this show's life, and that's probably why only a bunch of slightly weird people were willing to do this show in the first place. Most sound-minded people would probably decline, but lots of them were monetizing their few seconds of fame on camera. This episode, we explore Nathan interacting with actors in New York in order to train them for roles like his trademarked rehearsals, opening a little studio named the Fielder Method. In this episode, we are very distant from Angela till the end, letting the child grow all the way to 15 years old without Nathan in the house. But meanwhile, during the classes he teaches, he decides to rehearse the class with someone else playing himself, very Synecdoche, New Yorkish. He wants to see how the actors would see this weird class that he is teaching and what they would think. He adopts this one normal dude's life during the rehearsal in order to critique his own lesson and try to bring even more levels of authenticity to the studio. He tells his students to follow someone and become them, then eventually taking over their jobs and fully inhabiting their primaries. An interesting concept, but with Nathan Fielder, you know this is going an extra step. He orchestrates the kid that he is acting as in the rehearsal to move in a similar situation as his primary. He does this so he can start living in this guy's house to fully become the actor he has chosen to portray. I am telling you, the levels this man will go to is constantly barrier breaking and gives us such a unique viewing experience. The lessons are deemed a success, then he goes back to Angela and boom, the kid is like 15 like I said earlier. The kid initially just welcomes home his fake dad, but Nathan sits him down saying, wouldn't you be pissed if your dad left for 9 years? Eventually turning to discount Timothy Chalamet into a deadbeat druggie, leading to his overdose. At the end of the episode, Nathan pitches going back in time so he can be there for his kid as he starts to realize he can only balance the one rehearsal with the full amount of energy that is required to get the experience that he wants. Nathan decides to focus on Angela and takes no secondary rehearsals for the rest of the show, which I think is a good call if he's trying to achieve his initial goal.
Sometimes all it takes is a change in perspective to make the world feel brand new.
We get Nathan more in a father role this episode and wants to take this opportunity to practice getting what you want in a relationship so it's not as one-sided.
I have a tendency to let my partner take the reins and make the decisions as a way of avoiding conflict.
The goal of this episode is to allow both partners to teach their religion to the child instead of just picking one. This is the turn in the season where you realize Nathan is trying to get more out of this experiment than the volunteers. The actress that plays fake Angela is probably the best actor on the show and deserves all the applause she has been getting.
Shut up! You're a liar. Because if this were real, you would have some sort of emotion instead of standing there like a rock.
Daddy, chill.
Nathan starts to hide from Angela that he's giving the child secret lessons on Judaism. I'm not trying to make a hit piece on Angela for being anti-Semitic. I don't think she said anything that would give me confirmation on her hating my people.
Your favorite movie?
I love the movie Apocalypto. I think Mel Gibson makes really good movies. He's one of my favorite directors.
Right.
Been seeming sus lately.
There's a huge reveal in this episode, though, that Angela has really just been utilizing the house that has been rented out for the show and doesn't play the character when Nathan is gone, asking the child actors how their home life is and not acting like it's her son, Adam. She wasn't delivering on her promise to play the role and give this wacky scenario a chance, inevitably leaving her on the last straw and leaving the show, setting up a finale where only Nathan will be fathering a child. We start with Nathan throwing a birthday party for this kid with extras who are obligated to not speak at all under union laws. This episode specifically contains the most drama, but also the most humor at the same time. We explore this one kid who is so connected to Nathan as his dad now. After his time with the show is finished, Nathan goes to his house to try and explain to him he is no longer his dad. He was just acting and the kid will not let this go. He mentions how he truly bonded with this kid, a true fake relationship. This truly makes me a little teary-eyed. Now, is it Nathan's fault?
Hard no. Hard no. Hard no.
The kid doesn't have agency, and the parents are controlling what the kid does at that age. Although, it's hard to deprogram these kids in their vulnerable stages of life. We can only hope this is just a phase, but I would never blame Nathan Fielder for this. I love this little throwaway line where he mentions how he is not used to the level of detail the house was in being authentic. Because you know it's a real house and a real home for this child. Random objects are placed in random spots, and it's just so hard to match every little detail and get that same experience via many rehearsals. His attempt to continue without child actors is just absolutely hilarious, but also purposeful. Using a grown adult to play a child and seeing if their performance can be enough to retain the authenticity that Nathan is looking for in this show gives us one of the funniest moments of the show. Thankfully, we get a return of fake Angela because Nathan starts to realize that the fake mom in the home was necessary. The episode starts to go down the route of how do we make Angela stay engaged with the rehearsal. Man, I thought this episode was ready to end, but Nathan is not done. He reconstructs the home of the kid that was convinced that Nathan was his dad, and Mr. Fielder becomes Mrs. Fielder. He becomes the mom of the kid. He can now see how it would feel to receive the information he was giving before. He wants to see how the parents should be dealing with this and the troubles associated with his show. It leads up to this grand moment where Nathan Fielder seems to slip and say, "I'm your dad," when he's supposed to be the kid's mother. Something so simple, yet he doubles down on this because, well, he's the showrunner. At the end of the day, he can just pull back the mirror and control it any way he wants. I honestly love that he did this at the end because the last 10 minutes of this finale was kind of stressful and full of a lot of consequences. In the end, the last shot of the show is Nathan's ass, and I kind of appreciate how this show is one of a kind. Fielder never really works on anything that isn't groundbreaking. Check out How To with John Wilson, and obviously Nathan For You if you enjoyed this show. You don't get these shows very often.